This is our new Corvette water pump, AC Delco part, but made in China. So we'll see how it works. I think I've got the same thing on mine. So we're going to unbox this and do the steam line bypass mod to it before we actually put it on the engine. So that's required for the steam lines that come from the head. We actually connect those to the water pump. So any steam that comes through the head goes back through the water pump, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So this is the Corvette water pump. As you can tell, it's got a very short distance here and a nice wide pulley for the pump. Nice thing is it's supplied with gaskets. So this is water pump to block, and then there's two different types of gaskets depending on what housing you have. I think mine's probably O-ring because it's one piece the thermostat is with the little housing in the neck. So I'll get this mounted up and show you how it works. So I didn't have what I wanted in stock, so I've got some on order. But what I usually do is, you can see where this is another place that you can drill and put a pipe in. So this happens to be a 1/4 inch NPT to a 1/4 inch barb. What I usually like to do is an 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch NPT 90 to a 1/4 inch barb. So I got some more of these on order, but we'll use this for now to show you what I'm doing. So we've got it drilled, threaded with a 1/4 inch NPT, and then for now I'm just going to use this straight barb, 1/4 inch barb, and we will attach it with a piece of 1/4 inch hose. Right now I vacuumed off the engine. I'm going to take the water pump off, vacuum out and blow out the chips from the water pump, put the thermostat housing and thermostat on, and gaskets, and we'll button it up for good. So here we have the new Corvette water neck with the built-in thermostat, and it's already got the O-ring on it too. And that's part number. Go ahead and get that installed. And there you have it. The water pump's all modified and installed with gaskets. We also got the filler neck on. So that is good to go. Looks like the intake is just about cleaned out itself. We'll start adding new parts. I'll show you what's going on next. We're at the point now I need to start adding some wiring, and this is just a little hint that you should add the crankshaft position sensor before you put the headers or exhaust manifolds on, because it's up in here behind the starter, and it's a lot easier to get on now if you've got it off the engine or even on the engine before you put the exhaust manifold on. So I'm going to put this on a little early just to make it easier on myself, because I'm ready to put the exhaust manifold on. One thing to do before you get all your, or after you get all your exhaust manifold studs that are broken out, I've got one more to do on this engine, is to run a tap through each hole to clean out all the gunk, because these are pretty tight. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this is an 8mm by 1.25 tap. Pretty common, pretty easy to get, but just saves you a lot of hassle in the long run. Finally got the broken exhaust manifold bolt out. Tried with some right hand drills and then remembered I had done one back in November of 2017, and I had bought some left hand twist cobalt drills, which I got on Amazon. It was about $25 for a small set. And believe it or not, put it on there, I think I burned up about 4 cobalts doing the right hand, put the left hand twist in, and it twisted the bolt right out. So just a little hint and save you some time. When you're doing these, go ahead and get yourself a set of left hand twists, and it'll actually help turn them out. Another thing that I've seen is people use penetrating oil to get in there and do that a couple days beforehand. And then just center punch it in the middle, start with a small drill and work your way up. So now I'm going to put a helicoil in this and call it done. Where the camera will focus. But this is the helicoil set I used. It's from Napa. It's an M8 by 1.25. It includes, I don't know, 10 inserts or so the installation tool, the tap, and I can't remember if it comes with a 21/64 drill or not, but very worthwhile. And get yourself some left-hand twist drills, and you'll have your broken head bolts replaced in no time. The helical is installed. I put them just a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 turns below the surface. And the last thing you want to do is there's an installation tab in the back, so just take a small punch and break that off and make sure you get it out. Now we're ready to put the exhaust manifold back on. The exhaust manifolds are now on. Of course, I use brand new ARP bolts, stainless steel, because we will have stainless steel headers on this when it goes in the vehicle. But what I did was just took an old set of exhaust manifolds that I had laying around, and somebody that had brought them to me, they were chopped off just below the bung on both sides, so I just put a little turnout on them, and this is what I use to run the engine on test stand. Seems to work out pretty good and hasn't pissed off any neighbors yet. Today we're starting section 3 or phase 3 of getting this motor running on a test stand, and that is the wiring section. So what do you need to do to shorten, lengthen, do the wiring to get your engine running in your car? So I'll always start with wires that don't have the pinks. So the pinks are when you turn the ignition on, all the pinks go hot. So you have 12 volts to every pink. So think of like coil packs, mass airflow sensor, injectors, things like that. There's a few more. Transmission gets one, but anyway, O2 sensors. But I always like to start with the ones before that, just to get all the ones that do not have a pink in them. Now this happens to have a pink one, but it's pink and black. So this is the camshaft position sensor, and as is common with these, when someone pulled this wiring harness out, they split the wires up, which is not a big deal because there should be enough of wires left in this to actually tie some solder some new wires into. So what we're going to do is, this is going in a 65 GTO. So this is the GMA body. Buick had one, Oldsmobile had one. Shares the same frame and a lot of components with the Chevy Chevelle. So what we're going to do is, I start from the firewall and say I took a piece of string to mine, because I actually have 2 of them, and I went to the one that does not have any interior or anything in it, and I measured from the firewall back to where we're going to put the ECU and the fuse panel and all that stuff. And we're going to put it in behind the driver's side rear tire. In that little panel, a lot of people put a panel over that to clean up the trunk, so we're going to put it back in there. And using a piece of string, it's about 14.5 feet, and then I use this section, so I'm going to say this is my datum, so I'm going to go up to here, and then from here back I'm going to make every wire 15 feet long. So I'll show you my process. Here's everything I'm going to use to fix this camshaft position sensor and extend it to probably 16 feet from the connector. I just buy a whole bunch of, doesn't matter, you can use whatever color you want, but I just use white because it's neutral. Whatever gauge is on the GM wiring harness, and this is SXL wire, which is meant for engine compartments. And I have a couple of different terminals that go into the ECU. You can get those a couple different sources online. Some good electrical tape. The crimpers, so get the GM crimpers for those terminals. A soldering iron, so when I splice these wires back together, I actually solder them and tape them. And then I just stole my wife's label maker, so I'll mark each wire. So what I can do is I'll cut these, solder them, lengthen them, crimp a new end on, and then I'll go ahead and do a continuity test with each one, and then I'll make a label that says what color it is and where it actually goes on the ECM or the PCM, and in that way, or ECU, whatever you want to call it, and in that way, when you plug this in and run it through the car, you know exactly what connector it's supposed to go through and what terminal. So it keeps everything nice and together. And then the final thing I do after I make sure the continuity is good is I tape this all the way up to about 6 inches or a foot from the final terminals that go into the ECU. So I'll show you that process. So the first thing I've done is, of course, cut off the bad wire, make sure that you've got all the strands because there's not a lot in these, and I've stripped the wire. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and tin the wires, just heat up the soldering iron, touch the soldering iron to the bottom of the wire, and then take some solder and melt it right into there so it'll make a good bond with the new wire that I'm adding on. So now all 4 wires are tinned, so we're going to take the new wire and connect it to the pink and black with a little bit of solder, and then I'll tape it. Probably can't see it because it's small and I can't focus, but got a nice solder joint, so I'll go ahead and tape that and then cut the white wire to about 16 foot, test the continuity, label it, and move on to the next one. This is the label I make up for each wire. So this is CMP, which is camshaft position sensor. It's a red wire. It goes in terminal connector C2, position 39. So that gives me all the information I need when I hook this up on the test stand, and after we test everything, make sure it works, when I go 2 months, 3 months, a year later, install it in the vehicle, I can unhook all these wires, roll them up, and then all I have to do is plug that into the camshaft position sensor, run it back, and plug these 3 wires into the respective terminals, and it should fire right up. As you can see, this is quite a mess. So we have all 3 wires lengthened for the camshaft position sensor. They've all been continuity checked, and they are all labeled. But if you get 15-20 sensor wires with 3 or 4 plugs each, this turns into a mess. So what I do is start here, and I'll tape all the way to about a foot from the terminals, and it just makes it a lot easier to control. And you can run each wire or each sensor wire bundle by itself and hook it up, and then once it's hooked up on both ends, you're done with it. So there you have it. Probably a quarter or a third of a roll of tape, but this looks like it's a lot easier to manage, and that's just kind of how it wants to lay right now. It's all coiled up. So we'll go ahead and attach this to the camshaft position sensor, and the red, this is C1 and C2, so this is actually blue and green connectors, and we'll do that next. Here are the terminals to the ECU. So because this one is 2003 and above, it's drive-by-wire. C1 is blue, and C2 is green, and then just because I'm getting old, and I can still read the numbers, but I just put a little reference mark on them, 1 and 40. And of course, 41 through 80 is on the bottom side. So we'll hook those up to the ECU and start connecting wires. Well, there you have it. We have the camshaft position sensor wire lengthened. I made a very high-tech wire holding device. And then I have them connected into C1, which is blue, and C2 for this one is just green because it's a 2003 and up. See the wires, so it makes it really easy when you go to plug this in. Just match up your label on your wire to the position in the back of the connector. So that one's done. And then all you have to do when you get ready to, after I test this, what I'll do is pull all the wires out of here. They're related to sensors one at a time. Coil those up, and once I get to put those in the engine, then I'll go ahead and hook them up to the engine, run them through, make a nice loom, and hook them up at the ECU back at where I happen to be, underneath the seat, underneath the dash, or this one's in the trunk.